Opinions are still 6 for half a dozen when it comes to the emergency rule in Rivers State. The president's decision is still gathering as much reactions as you can imagine, depending on whose side you are. For instance, former Oyo State Governor and Otumba Rashid Laraja said that the declaration of emergency rule in Rivers State has ensured relative peace in the state. Well, questions. What do other former governors say? What do current governors say? What is the Nigerian Governors Forum saying? Maybe they will say something after this conversation that we're about to have with Mr. Jerry Chukwueke, who is former Chief Technical Advisor to the Governor of Imo State. He's also a public affairs analyst. He's here with me in the studio. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. These opinions all over the place about the president's decision for a state of emergency. There are those who are looking at it from the political stance, some looking at it from the governance stance. You have worked with a governor of a state before, and you know how difficult or otherwise it can be for the executive and the legislature to work. You've probably had to even represent the governor with the legislature and all of that. What do you think could have brought this whole thing up?
Well, first, let us be clear. I think we now face the reality check, because I think it's important to put aside all the drama and just focus on what is really happening. Rivers State, in my view, is like no other. You can't compare Rivers State in terms of security or the sufficiency or insufficiency of it with what's happening in other states, because it is a place of strategic national interest. It's indeed a national security issue that Mr. President is dealing with. And why is that the case? It is because it is home to massive investment in hydrocarbon infrastructure, export pipelines, storage, the whole business of the one-dimensional economy Nigeria does have at the moment. And so, if we must continue to earn money, if we must pay all the debt accrued from the previous governments in terms of forward sales, if we must deal with the issue of local refineries production in terms of having crude supplies, and in addition to that, the issue of also being able to have sufficient crude for sale to earn dollars to keep the economy and exchange rate stable. When you take a look at what's going on, Mr. President has some serious work going on because of the strategic interest we have in Rivers State, all of Nigeria. And I say this because you have to put aside the politics and the optics of it.
Do you also have to put aside the Constitution?
Well, not necessarily. And that's not the argument here. We face, in my view, our economy faces an existential threat.
I get that.
And so, look what's going on already. Fuel prices is skyrocketing again.
That's not why fuel prices is skyrocketing.
No, we can talk
understand
about
that there are, yes, I do. We understand that there are a number of other issues arising in the oil market all over the world. And we all knew, ab initio, that fully deregulated environment means that the price of petrol and other petrochemical products are going to undulate up and down from time to time. We knew this. Ab initio, the president was unequivocal about that. But the question a number of people are asking is, while the president is allowed by law to declare a state of emergency, there is no way in the declaration of a state of emergency that any law known to us today, even though some are quoting some 1961, facilities and all, there is no law that, according to the legal practitioners, say that the president is allowed to suspend a governor because he was employed the same way the governor was employed.
Yes. So I go back to the conversation. about national security interest.
I get the point of naturals. Are you saying, are you inferring, my apologies, yes, sir, are you inferring that the Constitution does not factor in national security in the declaration of state of emergency?
But guess what? But guess what's going on? Guess what's going on? In the case of Rivers State, and I don't want to get into all this noise making because there's so much drama going on that we're losing focus on the real issue. Because I ask, and anybody can now ask, what do you really do differently in a situation where we have a major issue with regards to containment of oil theft, vandalization of infrastructure, of the one source of managing the one-dimensional economy that we have? What do we do with what's giving us and this country the opportunity now for this government's policies, particularly having essentially removed this fuel subsidy issue, where we now have sufficient allocations to states and local governments as a consequence of the removal of fuel subsidy? What do you do differently? Because I ask, it's not just a matter of raising the argument about what the president may have done right or wrong, because there's no perfect policy here. But what is in the strategic national interest? That's the question. And what would anybody arguing do differently? Are you going to now go back and say, we don't recognize that the focus in Rivers State is that we must do everything to protect the strategic interest of Nigeria with regards to the one-dimensional economy challenge we face, and all of the pressures that are coming as a consequence? So the issue, in my view, and I think Mr. President is struggling with this, because he would have had to balance out all of this to say, where are we? You got forward sales challenge, crude oil production that is already pledged to pay debt accumulated over years in excess of 15 billion. You have now crisis with regards to crude oil availability for local refineries. We're seeing that already play with Dangote, that has the biggest facility out there to support the Nigerian economy. Or are you talking about earning dollars to keep the exchange rate stable and the economy going? Mr. President is under pressure on that matter. And let me tell you, I say opposition, we should be hearing arguments about what they would do and what should be done in their alternative. What would be done differently in the case of Rivers? So I go back to the issue. Investor confidence, production of crude. The target is 2.5 million barrels of crude a day by the next year. You see what Mr. President has done with regards to supporting local oil companies in purchasing local assets that the majors are not playing anymore, so as to ramp up. And I keep making the economy argument, because the economy is stupid is the issue. The more we can keep the economy stable and have the opportunities for our governors and local governments to keep operating and empowering the economy, every part of Nigeria is better. And give me 1 second here on this point. Look what's going on in the States. In my own state, Timo, it now takes less than 40 minutes to connect all of the senatorial zones in terms of roads infrastructure, with street lights and drainage. You got local schools, primary schools being rebuilt and refurbished. You got local health care. You got health insurance programs going on for our people. We want to bring more people to the safety net. It's going on as well in Enugu State. It's going on in Abia and Anambra. And in fact, Uyo State. Look what's going on. And look at Kano and Kaduna and all the work going. So I'm saying to you, we must take a deep breath and say, what is in our best national interest? How do we secure?
I get that.
And that's why I keep pivoting.
I get
because
that.
That's the real issue, isn't it?
I understand perfectly what you
said.
And there is no one, just a second, there is no one who's going to argue with it.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, if there was no state,
yes,
there would be nothing to contend with.
Yes.
If Rivers State was not as, didn't have the resources, the positioning it has,
correct,
it probably wouldn't be as contentious.
Absolutely.
That's understood.
Correct.
However, there are those who have also, drawn what you said about investor confidence from a totally different angle. Their own argument is demolishing or fracturizing democratic institutions has a way of discouraging people from a nation that they think does not respect its own democratic structures or democratic infrastructure. Yes. So if the president, for instance, has the power to discombobulate the democratic structures of a state, yes, to the point of the government of, yes, the state, the executive and the legislature in the state, now seemingly suspended for whatever length of time it is, right, it raises questions as to what their confidence would be should, okay, for instance, all the people that have signed with that state government, what happens to their investments?
So let's look at it. And I hear that argument. But my view is that Mr. President is probably looking at a reset situation in Rivers State because he had tried many approaches to reaching understanding in terms of the lines of divide. He invited the elders of Rivers State. He engaged the governor and his opponents. And in fact, engaged even indirectly the House of Assembly in Rivers State. Have you thought about the fact that he may well be creating an opportunity for a reset? Let things calm down. I'm not even sure how long this quote-unquote suspension of Rivers State governor and the democratic system would be. It may be it may not even be the 6 months you're talking about. I think Mr. President is looking to have everybody take a deep breath and calm down so we can now find a solution to how we protect national security interests and support democracy. Remember, he has a track record of a strong Democrat. You can't take that from him. That's what he's fought for. All of the political life I've known him, from Lagos State to Nadeko, and all the things he's done. So, listen, let's give him some credit. What's happening here, and this is what I invite everybody to think about, is if we're going to have opposition, let's talk about what we'll do differently. Okay. What are you going to do different? Are you going to go back now?
I was actually going to ask you,
please do.
If you've spoken with some lawyers,
yes,
and what their arguments are about this constitutional conundrum.
Yes, I have, and you know what? I have lawyers on the other side as well.
Of course.
So the point is, I think Mr. President is set the stage for a reset. Everybody take a deep breath. I'm sure there are conversations going on about how we quickly return to democracy, but protecting the national strategic interest of this country.
I'm wondering whether that reset is going to happen and how, but don't answer that. Don't answer that question yet. Mark, please go ahead.
Indeed, Mr. Chukwueke, I hear you when you say that, you know, this might be an opportunity for a reset. But there are those who are very frightened with what is happening in River State, particularly with the actions, some of the actions that the sole administrator has now taken, dissolving cabinet, you know, saying the commissioners are not needed. I think only recently the Council of Traditional Rulers too. I mean, and that came as a surprise because he met with traditional rulers a moment, I think, a day before, and then shortly after, you know, it seemed, or you know, that they were suspended, or the council was suspended. It's unclear what has happened. But there are those who are saying that the other levers of governing a state have now been dissolved or suspended by the sole administrator. So if this was just an attempt at reset, some people they have very, very, you know, strong misgivings about that. They think that the plot here is deeper than what people are actually looking at. They think it's more political, and they call it sinister in nature.
Well, again, I hear that argument, but it doesn't take from the issue that is at hand, how we protect the national interest of Nigeria and national strategic interest. Look, the new system and regime we have in Rivers State is the position of a sole administrator. And I'm not so sure that a hybrid would necessarily bring the immediate stability that is required. I am convinced, and we have to see how this plays out, that this situation in Rivers State is indeed a reset to give opportunity to all sides to take a deep breath and calm down and engage with the guidance and support of stakeholders to find a solution. I believe, Mr. President, will quickly restore democracy in Rivers State as soon as things calm down enough But the focus is he cannot let his foot off the pedal with regards to the national security interest of Nigeria, and Rivers State presents just that. That's the point in my view.
Mm. The question is a reset for who? That's the question, because we know that even though, yes, the next elections are 2 years away, the political timetable starts to tick about now, and then INEC's timetable kicks in just a year before that. And those who are saying this is all a reset, in your own words now, for, political calculations, that's what this is about.
That is not my view. I think the reset is to give the antagonists, the proponents of the challenges, and all of the people involved in this conundrum that has gotten us to where we are, an opportunity to take a deep breath and find some common ground. That's the reset I'm talking about. And I believe that as soon as that is sufficiently done, and those conversations are going on now, Mr. President, we have to restore democracy in Rivers State.
Yeah,
but I think it's focused on national security interest, and that's the point I keep making.
If I may interrupt you, I mean, you just talked about those conversations that are going on now. Which conversations and where are they happening?
You're not going to know sitting here in the studio, Mokwe. I'm sure you know that. There are direct and indirect conversations going on. Mr. President is losing sleep over Rivers State. I can assure you of that, because he knows the world is watching. He knows we need to support democracy, but more importantly, to keep our economy going and our strategic national interest. And it's an important balance. And I think that requires a careful approach. I have confidence that he's doing just that.
Yeah, but there are those who, that's basically the complaints, that part of the complaints that they have, that if this is what about seeking a political solution and, making sure that people are taking a deep breath and taking a second look at what is happening in Rivers State, that they're not seeing any of that happening. I don't want to think that those kinds of meetings will be happening in secret, so much so that journalists will not even get wind of those kinds of conversations happening. Yes, conversations can take place behind closed doors, but when there's movement, even journalists are aware. They know that meetings are taking place in certain places, even though the outcomes might not be disclosed to them. So if these conversations are actually happening, the question is where? Because the allegation is that the conversations are not even happening at all.
I'm not sure of that, Mokwe. Here, listen, all the public conversations and all the noise making and drama haven't gotten us anywhere. So you know that solutions are found quietly, with serious people engaging quietly and ensuring that all egos are massaged. And some of these important things, I assure you, have much more effective results when they're handled quietly. I don't believe that is a media, funfair and all the huge conversations and noise, because all we see out here in terms of public conversation is drama. But the real things are being talked about, in my view.
Well, as you said, things are happening behind the scene. The question is, what is happening behind the scene, and what do people do about everything that is happening, and when do they expect anything solid to come out? I think that's what people are waiting for.
Well, and I believe we'll get that. Well, we will get there, I believe.
I'll hold you to it.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Jerry Chukwueke, former chief technical advisor to Imo governor, as well as public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
Okay. Well, from here we go to another conversation where we return. To stay with us.